From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. The social minga is growing across Colombia, with more supporters joining on the 27th day of demonstrations. On Thursday, students of the University of Cauca ratified their support for the minga, which is led by indigenous communities, Afro-descendants and campesinos. Young people across Colombia have also denounced threats and repression by police against demonstrators. They have said that at least 3 of their colleagues have been detained. Organizers say the minga social won't stop until President Duque negotiates and recognizes their demands. More than 12,000 people have joined the protests. Members of the reincorporation centers for the former FARC have joined the minga and denounced that police forces are restricting their rights to protest. In a video posted on social media, a group of people in Incononso, Tolima, were prevented from protesting by 2 policemen. A member of the group is shown explaining to the police that her banners say "In defense of our territory, life and peace, and no to hydrocarbon exploitation." One of the policemen is heard saying that he has orders from the presidency not to let demonstrators carry banners against President Iván Duque. Meanwhile, a group of Colombian activists have been mobilizing in Europe, demanding an end to the persecution of Colombian social leaders. They will march from Paris to The Hague, more than 400 kilometers away, to denounce the 570 murders of leaders and activists since the peace agreements were signed in 2016. And the Colombian President Iván Duque has not explained yet why Venezuelan military dissenters remain in the border city of Cúcuta. Videos have been circulating which suggest they are receiving training as part of the so-called Freedom Operation, announced by the opposition figure Juan Guaidó to remove the government in Venezuela.
Senator Antonio Sanguino has condemned the fact that Venezuelan deserters could be receiving training in hotels on Colombian territory to prepare a military operation against the government of Nicolás Maduro.
There are videos in which soldiers appear with hoods on and admit that they are part of Operation Freedom and that the operation is waiting for orders from the supposed interim president Juan Guaidó to begin military action against the Venezuelan National Guard, which is loyal to President Maduro.
In this video, one of them speaks with an air military authority in an attempt to split the armed forces.
We are here in the city with only one mission, which is to free our country, following the instructions given by our Commander-in-Chief, Juan Guaidó, as part of Operation Libertad.
The Colombian government denies all this, but it still hasn't clarified the situation of these former soldiers in Colombia, 1 month after they entered the country.
There's no military training in Cúcuta. That is false. And anyone who says that, and I say this bluntly, although I don't like to use the word, is lying. The only training they might be receiving from the National Training Institute is information technology and communications.
The human rights defender Wilfredo Cañizares says the Colombian government must explain if these former soldiers are refugees, why are they still being kept in hotels in Cúcuta and Villa del Rosario, and why are they talking about Operation Freedom?
There is no reason for them to be in places like these, for them to be locked up and prevented from leaving or speaking to anyone. They are virtually imprisoned. What is the Colombian government waiting for? What is it organizing with these soldiers? Why do they refuse to deal with this matter publicly and transparently?
The UN Agency for Refugees, the ACNUR, has also not said anything about these actions, which would contravene the international rules on refugees and would also mean that President Iván Duque is in breach of the Colombian Constitution.
The United States military reinforced the El Paso-Ciudad Juárez border on Thursday by laying barbed wire and putting up barricades. U.S. President Donald Trump repeated his threat to close the border, saying Congress could prevent such a shutdown by changing laws to fix what he called immigration loopholes. Trump has employed nationalistic and racist rhetoric to suggest there is a migration crisis in the U.S. and has demanded a wall be built along the border. Most migrants arriving at the border are Central American families seeking asylum. And Trump has threatened Mexico with economic consequences if it doesn't assist in limiting migration to the United States. Only 1 week ago, the U.S. president said he may close the border between the two countries, but has since backtracked, offering what he called a one-year warning.
I think, as I said, migration is an economic and social phenomena. So migration, not only in Mexico but around the world, cannot be stopped. What we need is to have an orderly, regular and safe migration, and it is what the Mexican government is aiming to. Migration will never be stopped, it's intrinsic to humanity. But what we can do is do it in a regular way, in an orderly way that protects human rights.
And as a consequence of the current hostile U.S. stance on migration, officials in Mexico appear to be trying to slow down the migratory process towards the U.S. through assistance and labor programs. However, the Mexican government has denied that it has changed its policy in response to U.S. threats.
What people want are their humanitarian visas to cross the country in less time possible and reach the United States, where they will face another migration process, which the U.S. will determine. But what Mexico is doing is solving the problem for the United States, and they are turning this region of the country into a true social laboratory, where there is everything from corruption due to omission and for a commission.
In other news, the British Prime Minister Theresa May has written to the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, asking for a Brexit extension until June 30th. On Thursday, the House of Commons passed a bill demanding that the PM ask for an extension to avoid a no-deal scenario. Tusk had offered an extension of a year, but May is trapped by pro-Leave elements within the right-wing Conservative Party. The move comes as negotiations between the governing Tory party and the opposition Labour Party continue, seeking to find a Brexit consensus. A source close to the French President Emmanuel Macron has suggested that France has responded to the Brexit extension plan with skepticism. The French government wants to see a credible Brexit plan with support from the House of Commons before granting the UK an extended period of time to leave the bloc. If the British government is unable to provide a plan of action, the French position is that the UK has opted for a no-deal exit.
The rejection of the withdrawal agreement 3 times by the House of Commons, as well as the rejection of any alternative plan, means we're heading towards no deal. And as the European Council decided on March 22nd, it's up to the UK to present a credible alternative plan which is supported by a majority between now and April 10th. If the UK is unable to do so almost 3 years after the referendum, it will effectively have chosen a no-deal exit, and we can't avoid that failing on their behalf.
And in Ireland, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel met with the Irish head of government Taoiseach Leo Varadkar. This happened on Thursday to address the possible complications of a no-deal Brexit scenario for the country. Ireland is determined to avoid a hard border between the north of Ireland, which is UK territory, and the Republic. And Ireland and the UK will share the only land border between the EU and the United Kingdom. A hard border threatens to destabilize peace agreements made in the north of Ireland, and for many local residents suggests a return to the days of troubles. A struggle for sovereignty which lasted 3 decades and cost over 3,000 lives.
We said that if the UK had not ratified the withdrawal agreement, it should come forward with a clear plan for the way forward by next week, or it would leave the European Union on the 12th of April without a deal. This is an outcome that none of us want to see. Matters continue to play out in London, and I think we need to be patient and understanding of the predicament that they're in. But of course, any further extension must require and must have a credible and realistic way forward.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has left Libya after a brief visit to the North African country. As the military tension escalates in the country, Guterres said on Twitter, quote, "I leave Libya with a heavy heart and deeply concerned." He also said that he hopes that a bloody confrontation can be avoided in the capital.
This large convoy of heavily armed military vehicles had been seen moving towards the Libyan capital Tripoli on Thursday. This Libyan National Army fleet started their advance after their commander Khalifa Haftar made an appeal in an audio recording posted online.
Heroes, the time has come. It is time to advance, as you have always done, with a firm step towards Tripoli and to enter peacefully. Only point your weapons at those who have decided to fight and combat us. Only shoot at those who have decided to shoot and want bloodshed. Those who put down their weapons will be spared.
Soon, the head of the United Nations-backed Government of National Accord meets his troops to oversee that the LNA is stopped from entering the capital. Haftar's forces were pushed back from the key location, less than 30 kilometers from the capital.
The time has come for Zawiya and its combatants, fighters and revolutionaries. We have done a great mission for this precious land.
These internal military tensions arise at a time when the UN Chief Antonio Guterres was visiting the country. Guterres came to prepare a national reconciliation conference to be held later this month between the various factions in the scramble for power in Libya.
When I was coming to Libya, I was surprised with a number of military movements and a number of public statements that, of course, created an enormous concern. I want to make a very strong appeal. An appeal for all military movements to stop, an appeal for containment, calm, de-escalation, both military and political and verbal de-escalation.
Experts say these latest developments could lead to a military confrontation between the forces of the UN-backed government of Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj and Commander Khalifa Haftar. Both sides have been fighting for power since 2018. This escalation in tension is the most severe in this oil-rich country since the execution of the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 by NATO-backed forces.
In other news, South Africa has downgraded its embassy in Israel in protest against the country's oppression of the Palestinian people. South Africa, formerly full-service embassy in Tel Aviv, has been downgraded to a liaison office, a diplomatic mission with limited functions. South African authorities said this is the first phase in reducing diplomatic relations between the two countries at the request of South Africa's ruling African National Congress Party.
The majority party has agreed that government must cut diplomatic ties with Israel, given the absence of genuine initiatives by Israel to secure lasting peace and a viable two-state solution that includes full freedom and democracy for the Palestinian people.
Algerians have gathered for the first mass protests since the resignation of ailing President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, now calling for the resignation of his allies too. Hundreds of thousands of protesters demanding radical change marched through Algiers for a seventh successive Friday, as Algeria's intelligence service chief was reportedly fired. No clear successor to Bouteflika has yet emerged. Protesters have made it clear they will reject any candidate with ties to the old government.
This is a country of martyrs, not a country of thieves. They stole the country. Our children and brothers died as martyrs in the mountains, while they were studying and took jobs and positions they never gave up. We don't need them. We don't need them. We don't need them.
A humanitarian ship with over 64 migrants on board is stuck in the Mediterranean Sea after several European countries refused to let it dock in their ports. The migrants were rescued off the coast of Libya by the German humanitarian group CI. Over 30,000 migrants lost their lives between 2014 and 2018 while attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea to escape conflicts and poverty in their home countries. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, Gambian Fatou Bensouda, has been given a ban from getting a visa by the U.S. government over her office's decision to probe alleged war crimes by the United States in Afghanistan. She has been investigating atrocities committed by U.S. military and its allies in Afghanistan, a move that United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo cautioned last month could lead to sanctions on ICC officials. ICC judges are still reviewing materials and have not yet handed down a decision to open a formal investigation into Afghanistan. Belgium has apologized for kidnapping children from African colonies. Belgium's Prime Minister apologized on Thursday for the segregation, deportation, and forced adoption of thousands of children born to black Africans and married to white Belgians. This travesty happened during Belgium's colonial rule of Burundi, the Congo, and Rwanda. This is the first time that Belgium has recognized its responsibility for the harm it inflicted on the Central African nations, which it colonized for 8 decades.
On behalf of the federal government, I apologise to the mixed-race people with roots in Belgian colonisation and to their families for the injustice and suffering that they went through. I also wish to express all of our compassion for the African mothers whose children were torn away from them.
I am very moved because after all these years, the Prime Minister recognized what we have been through all these years. It is a recognition of what the Belgian state has done to us in collaboration with the church. They took away a part of our identity and now they admit that mistake. I feel a lot better now.
And in case you missed this story, a gay African-American woman has been elected mayor of the United States' third largest city, Chicago. Former federal prosecutor Lori Lightfoot defeated Toni Preckwinkle in a runoff for Chicago mayor Tuesday. She will be the first openly gay person and first black woman to lead the city. Lightfoot, who was an assistant U.S. attorney before she entered private practice, has never before held elected office.
And these people are scared. They're scared of the climate of hate and fear, fanned and promoted by a culture in Washington, D.C., and from the White House, in the capital of our own country. They're our neighbors, and they're scared of a knock on the door in the middle of the night, followed by agents coming in to haul them away.
We have more stories coming up. We'll be back.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A tweet by WikiLeaks suggesting that Ecuador will expel its founder Julian Assange from its London embassy has had a large coverage by media around the world. We now go to our correspondent Denise Herrera in Quito. Hello Denise, can you explain to us how this is connected to the INA Papers corruption scandal?
Hello, Carla. Yes, indeed. WikiLeaks said Ecuador's government plans to expel Julian Assange from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and that there is an agreement with the UK for his arrest. Recently, President Lenin Moreno blamed the site for recent allegations of corruption in new outlets and the publication of photo families on social media. These publications regarding with the INA Papers corruption case. Anyway, however, the Ecuadorian government said that no decision has been made to expel Julian Assange from the embassy of the Ecuadorian embassy in London. So also the Foreign Minister of Ecuador, José Valencia, said that they will not take any action against Julian Assange. So we will see if the Ecuadorian authorities will take new decisions regarding with the situation of Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
Thank you very much, Denise, for your report. That was Denise Herrera from Quito. And we continue in Ecuador. A cross-party committee has been created by the members of the National Assembly to investigate its president, Elizabeth Cabezas. The committee was approved with 123 votes in favor and 1 abstention. Now, 3 assembly members will have to investigate the president of the assembly, accused of blocking a corruption probe against President Lenin Moreno over the INA Papers scandal. An audio was leaked in March where Cabezas was heard talking to the Interior Minister, allegedly about the votes needed to prevent the investigation.
This concerns the President of the National Assembly. We have to defend the institution.
We do not have to be confused about this. This is not a criminal case. Recently, we received an important recommendation from the Observatory of the Legislative Power, and the reform of the legislative function is clear. These determination processes do not require to verify the legality of the evidence because we are not handling a judicial case here.
Jamaica's ruling party has won in the hotly contested by-election in Portland Eastern. Anne-Marie Vaz will be the first female member of parliament to represent the constituency. The seat was left vacant following the murder of MP Linvale Bloomfield in February. The win means the ruling party will increase its narrow House majority. Now to Bolivia. The government of Evo Morales has decided to increase its assistance to neighborhoods in several cities with the aim of providing solutions and improving the living conditions of residents.
The state program is called Mi Barrio, Mi Hogar, or My Neighborhood, My Home. Last year, the project made improvements in 56 districts in La Paz and benefited more than 138,000 families in the country.
We are much better. All this used to be dirt and very slippery. It's much better now. Our president has helped us a lot.
It's good to have communal houses for young people. We want big venues to give our kids and young people workshops and guidance.
The program is implemented through a lottery fund. The interested district, with wide participation from its residents, must develop a project and propose it to the State Social Investment Fund, which chooses the most creative proposal.
We want to implement mesh protection for a wooded area. The Fejuve La Paz neighborhood is presenting the mesh project for the forest of Purapura. We are also presenting a tourism plan for the area.
The approved projects don't require any money from the district. The maximum amount per project is close to $500,000, and the options are many.
There are projects about equipment, some are about the environment and others are about roads. We're looking to improve parks, fields and social venues, as well as to stabilize or even renovate some surfaces. It's a common concern in La Paz.
The program started last year with $10 million. This year, the government announced a $200 million fund for the whole nation as part of the Redistribution of Economic Resources program, generated by nationalization of the country's strategic industries.
This Thursday, indigenous communities from Embera-Wonan County demonstrated in Panama City against a government investment plan in their region, which would mean exploitation of the area's natural resources. Demonstrators say they don't know the authorities planning the initiative. Embera-Wonan is known for its natural resources, among them Cocobolo wood, which is illegally exploited by corporations. The communities are demanding that international bodies like the Inter-American Development Bank stop financing this kind of exploitative projects. With that, we end our news brief, but you can read more on these stories by going to our website, telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria, and you can join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.